We found water on Mars.
But we lost Matt Damon, so it evens out.
We lost Matt. Well, he came back. He did come back.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
This is Adelaide, and this is space. These two things don't have a great deal in common, except for this guy. Andy Thomas is the only person to have ever gone from this place to this place. The Australian-born astronaut spent a grand total of 177 days, 9 hours and 14 minutes in space, much to the amazement of this guy. So, when I was in primary school, I remember vividly coming home from school, seeing on the news this amazing story about a guy from Adelaide having gone to space for the very first time. So on behalf of 12-year-old me, can I just say that was mind-blowing.
Thank you for pointing out how many years it's been.
We both feel old now, it's fine.
Yeah, well, it was mind-blowing. I mean, if you think about spaceflight and astronautics, Adelaide is not the city that leaps to mind. And it's an improbable career path for anyone, let alone a boy from Adelaide, but it shows what you can do if you have a dream and have the tenacity to pursue it.
When you were sitting on that spaceship, the countdown was going. What goes through your head in that exact moment?
Actually, it was interesting. The first time I flew, I did think a lot about my background. You know, lying strapped to 500 tons of high explosive is a very introspective time.
I can imagine.
Yes. And I did think about the path that led from growing up in Adelaide to being strapped in there. I thought, what an extraordinary set of circumstances. I have to say, by the time of my fourth flight, my thoughts were a little more prosaic. I lay there after about 2 hours, zipped up tightly in the pressure suit, thinking I really shouldn't have had a second cup of coffee at breakfast.
You've done 4 trips. How does your body change in space?
Being in zero gravity is a very strange sensation. The blood that normally flows into your legs and is held down by gravity comes up into your head, and so you end up with this sort of puffy, full face, and it takes a while for the body to adapt. Let's face it, zero gravity, being weightless, is about the most unnatural thing you can possibly do.
Yes.
And yet, after you've been in zero gravity for a few hours and you've learned just to push yourself off gently, to move across the cabin, for example, you actually start to feel like it's a very natural environment. You feel like you've been there before and that you've been this way all your life, which you haven't. Of course, the downside is you pay a price for it when you come back. You feel this tremendous mass on you as all your internal organs are pulled down. And the first time you stand up and move your head, things spin a bit. It's really a very strange sensation. We take gravity very much for granted. For example, you're always losing things. You can't put anything down because if you do, it will float away. If you put a pen down, it will float away. It'll go behind a panel or behind a vent or something, and you will never find it again. It was so frustrating, just losing things like pens and pencils all the time.
There's still an Andy Thomas pen up in space somewhere that no one's ever going to find.
There probably is.
You're not the only astronaut in your family. Your wife is an astronaut as well, and you anticipate that she will go back. How do you deal with that separation, the two of you?
I think the fact that we've both been through the same kind of training flows and we both experienced spaceflight makes it easier for one partner to understand what the other is going through. And spaceflight now is not such an isolationist event as it used to be. For example, on the space station which she flew on, there's a phone. You just dial a local number, actually, a local Houston number, and it rings. There's a bit of a delay.
You're kidding? It's
no.
Just you dial a local Houston number. What are the STD rates like on that?
We don't ask.
So in space, there is so many things that can go wrong, is my perception of it. Was there ever a moment where you're like, okay, well, this is the end, I'm going to explode?
No, it's never been that bad. We did have one incident on the Mir space station. We had a fire inside one of the air handlers. And a fire is one of the worst things you can have on a spacecraft. In the confined space, you know, you can't open a window to let the smoke out.
No.
And so we had a huge smoke build-up inside the cabin, which was pretty serious, actually. It took a long time to clear it out. That's probably the most serious event I've had. But in spaceflight business, you always plan for contingencies. And we always had a capsule docked to the space station so that if something went horribly wrong, we could get in that and we could leave. And we could actually be back on the ground in a couple of hours.
Really?
Yeah.
It moves that fast?
Oh yeah, you deorbit and land and you're done.
Andy Thomas, we're happy to welcome you aboard.
The longest of your stints was in the Russian space station,
Yes,
correct?
20 weeks.
How's your Russian?
It was a lot better then than it is now.
In my mind, is this you just go nyet, nyet, nyet?
Yes, a lot of nyets, yeah. And my two crewmates didn't speak English, so we had to talk Russian.
It's still kind of amazing to me that, you know, the Cold War drove so much of space, the technological drive, and then suddenly you're up there as an American in this instance on a Russian space station. It must have been this moment of like, how far we've come.
It was. I commented on that a lot when I got back. I thought it was extraordinary that we'd started the space program purely out of competition to beat the Russians. And there I was representing the same agency, NASA, flying with Russians on a Russian spacecraft, working collaboratively. I was glad to be able to do that.
When you're up there looking down on Earth, it must give you a slightly philosophical view of human life.
Yeah, it does. It does. Especially when you see, from a global perspective, the damage being done to the planet. They say the only thing you can see from space human created is the Great Wall of China. That's a myth. You can't, you can't actually see it. But you can see the deforestation, and it is just staggering. You can see plumes of smoke traveling around the entire planet from this incredible destruction that's taking place. Flying in space gives you a good sense that, hey, this is one planet, we better take good care of it, and we're not doing such a good job with that.
Andy Thomas?
My pleasure, thank you.